Welcome back to Busy Garden Life. Today I am getting ready to can some diced tomatoes and hopefully get a nice quart jar of whole tomatoes, whole San Marzano tomatoes. So I've been kind of just picking these over the last week or so, and it's time for me to do something with them. Now, last year I was so busy during this time that I washed my tomatoes, I cored them, I sliced them up, and I threw them in the freezer. And then over the winter, I just made sauce and ketchup. But I didn't have any diced tomatoes or whole tomatoes. And when we cook our tomatoes or our spaghetti sauce, we always use diced tomatoes with regular tomato sauce. And I have a couple great recipes that use whole San Marzano tomatoes. And so I really wanted to can some of those. And so this year I have made it a point to do those first because I don't have any. And like I said, over the last week or so, I have been just kind of taking some of the tomatoes off the vine. I have Romas, I have some beefsteak tomatoes, and then I have picked, hopefully enough for at least one jar of the San Marzano tomatoes. So I grow these type of tomatoes just because I know that these are the tomatoes I want to work with while I'm canning. And the beefsteak are great for sandwiches if you're looking for sandwich stuff. I have some cherry tomatoes for salads, but otherwise my main tomatoes are the beefsteak, Romas, San Marzano, and Amish paste. All right, so I have quite a few of them here. I have washed them. They are all washed so that we can kind of start through the process, but I want to show you my setup first. So I have everything set up, and this is typically what I do with any of my canning. I get it all ready and prepared to make it a little bit easier for myself. Now, usually with my jars, we are going to water bath can these because we are putting lemon juice in with the tomatoes, so we can water bath can them. We just have to do that for about an hour and a half. So it's a long process, but I can get other things done while they're processing. So with that being said, I usually like to put my jars in my water bath canner as it's warming up and then dump the water out and fill the jars. Well, today I'm doing a ton of canning today. So I decided to just put them in the dishwasher this morning, and it beeped maybe 5 minutes ago that it's done. So they'll stay nice and hot in there for a good amount of time, at least until I get the tomatoes done. So I am grabbing the jars out of the hot dishwasher this morning, which is so nice. I have my tomatoes here. I have a bowl for the scraps once we start peeling and coring. I have my little funnel for filling the jars. I have a bowl to put the diced tomatoes in. We're gonna do a raw pack, meaning I'm not cooking the tomatoes after I dice them or put them whole. So we're gonna use our hot jars. The tomatoes, we'll just make sure that they're at least room temperature. They're not cold, otherwise you do get that shock of the hot jar and the cold, which can break them. But room temperature will be fine. We'll fill the jars and then we'll put them in the water bath canner after that. So in addition to that, I have my lids. Now I have always, I've washed the lids and I have them in a bowl of hot water. So I have always put them on the stove and got them warm and kept them warm while I was processing. And nowadays you don't have to warm them at all. You can, as long as they're washed and clean, you can put them directly on there. I'm old school, so I always still just like them warm. I've gotten a couple comments on some of my other videos about how you don't have to keep them warm, and it's kind of a preference thing. I think I'm so used to doing it that I do it, but just know that you can do that, keep them warm, or you don't have to as long as they're washed. All right, so I've got my lids and I've got my bands all next to where I'm going to be kind of taking the jars out, filling them, and then I can take them right over to the canner. So let's head to the stove too. I do have my lemon juice as well because you do not want to forget to put that in your jars. We need 2 tablespoons per quart of jars and then 1 tablespoon if you're just doing pints. All right, so let's head over to the stove real quickly. All right, so at the stove here, I'm using my pressure canner as a pot today for my water bath canning because later on I'm going to do chicken soup and beef stew. So I just have my pot out because I do have to pressure can the stews and the soups. And then I have my pot here. This is to blanch our tomatoes. So we're gonna blanch the tomatoes for about 30 seconds after we score the bottoms so that it's super easy to peel. Blanch them, we put them in the cold water, just like we do peaches. The peaches are the exact same. It makes it so easy to peel, and then we can dice them up and get them ready for the jars. All right, so I have everything going on the stove here. This water is just about hot. This is starting to boil. I don't have to completely get this up to a boil because we can do that once the tomatoes are in, and then that is when our time starts after it comes to a boil when the tomatoes are in the water. All right, so like I said, I've got my bowl here for the cold shock to stop the tomatoes so we can peel them afterwards. Okay, so we're just gonna kind of come back over here. And first things first, we're just going to go ahead and score the tomatoes. I just do like a little X on the bottom of all of the tomatoes here with the paring knife. So these little tomatoes here, these are my San Marzano. These are the ones I'm going to use to do the whole tomatoes. I'm just gonna peel them and I'm just gonna shove them in whole. Now, our method today too is we are going to can them in their own juice. All right, so I'm not using water to can them. I am canning them in their own juice. And basically what the difference is when I'm putting them in the jars, I'm gonna kind of squish them down just a little bit to make sure that I'm getting some of that tomato juice out of there, and just kind of surround the tomatoes with their own juice coming out of them. So that way when you're cooking, you're using the tomato juice. Now you can use water, but when you use water, you do not have to can them as long. I don't know what the time difference is, maybe 15 minutes or so, but because we're canning them in the juice, we do have to can it for a full hour and 30 minutes. So I'm going to score all the little ones. I'm probably going to blanch these, or I'm going to do these first in the jar just because I want to make sure whatever I have left over I can just add to the diced tomatoes, because I only have enough for one, I believe. All right, so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to finish scoring all these, and then I will meet you at the stove for us to blanch and shock them in the cold water. Okay, so we're back over here. We're just gonna blanch all of our tomatoes. Really, it only takes about 30 seconds. I'll put a couple in there at the same time. I did put ice in the bowl here, so it's nice and cold, and I can just replenish that as needed when the hot tomatoes kind of cool down that, or warm up that water a little bit. You can see it's just going to peel so easily. I usually have my daughter here to help me. She's in school. She started school this week. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to work towards blanching them, cooling them down. I have a cookie sheet right here to kind of put the tomatoes on when we're done. And then we're going to head back over and we are going to dice them all up. Okay, that is that. So now we are going to peel and core. All right, so when you blanch them, you can see how easily they peel. This one, whoops, this one's a little bit tighter, but some of them, the peels are already just coming off right away. I didn't score this one as well, but it's still, look how easy this is. The quickest and easiest way to do your tomatoes there. All right, and then I have this corer, tomato core that I got from Amazon last year, and oh, it's so great. All you have to do is get in there and just core the tomato. So easy. At first I wasn't sure if I really wanted to spend the $10 on it, but $10 well spent. Okay, so we're just gonna go through and peel. Oh, look how easy that is. And then when we chop them up, you know, there's some areas on there that are a little bit, you know, brown, or they don't look great. So you can just cut those portions out of the tomato. Homegrown tomatoes are definitely not like store-bought. You do have a lot more imperfections. So, which is the whole point of growing your own. Now, I'm doing a smaller batch. So this is, I mean, it's a decent size, right? But, you know, a lot of times when you go to the store or, you know, farmer's market, you can buy a whole bunch in bulk. Or if you have a massive garden, then you're gonna have a lot more tomatoes than I do. I actually kind of like just doing smaller batches at once. Like the tedious work of, hold on, I'm gonna shut the door because my husband is mowing the lawn. It's loud. All right, that's better. It's such a nice day, I wanted the door open, but that's all right. So I kind of like doing smaller batches sometimes because, you know, it takes time, the tedious time it takes to peel and core the tomatoes. It can be a lot. So when you have like, you know, triple, quadruple batches of this, then it can be really time consuming. So for me, with working full time and having the 4 kids, 3 of them in sports right now, my husband's 24-hour shifts, like I don't necessarily always have the time to sit there and do big old batches. So for me, this kind of works out a little bit better. I've done smaller batches with like my cucumber, my hamburger pill pickles, my cucumbers, you know, things like that, that I've kind of posted a couple videos on. Today, I'm also gonna try and get some dilly beans done. I don't have a ton of them, but if I can just get a couple jars of those, and then I still have some cucumber pickles, I might just try and do both of them together because they process the same time and they have majority of the same ingredients. You have a lot of the dill and you know, mustard seed, the vinegar, a lot of it's the same. So I'm actually gonna do like a dilly bean and cucumber pickles together and, you know, kind of save some time that way instead of doing big batches of both. So, all right. All right, so I've got what, 6 of them done. I still have all the rest of these to do, so I'm gonna do them and then we're gonna get to kind of dicing them, chopping them, and finish it off. All right, so I'm just finishing the last few of this San Marzano, and some of these tomatoes look so good. Some of them might not have ripened completely all the way, but they'll still be just fine for the diced tomatoes. Now, with that being said, the reason why they might not be ripe all the way is because I typically pull my tomatoes off the vine when they just start turning blush or when they're like halfway. I don't leave them on until they are fully ripened, mainly because the bugs. The pests will get to them. Last year I learned that the hard way. I'd wait and wait, and next thing I know, I'd find a tomato hornworm got to a lot of them, or there were bugs and pests in all of them, and I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm losing a lot of tomatoes because I'm trying to get them to ripen all the way. So if you want to avoid all those pests, then go ahead and pull those tomatoes off the vine, and then I just sit them in the windowsill right by my sink where there's a lot of sunlight, and they ripen just fine. Like all of these that I did were pretty green when I first pulled them off the vine, and as you can see, a lot of them are they're nice and red and ripe and just look fantastic. So, you know, most of them I should say. So I'm gonna put these San Marzanos just kind of to the side here because I'm doing those whole. And we've got them all peeled and cored, and now I'm just going to come through and dice the tomatoes up. Now, I tend to like my tomatoes diced a little bit on the larger side. I don't want them so small where they end up becoming mush when they're in the jar, all right? So they'll break down, when you make tomato sauce or whatever you're making with them, they will break down quite a bit. So this is a nice meaty Roma tomato here, nice size one. So I tend to make them a little bit larger. You can do whatever size you want to do. All right, whatever works for you. It's kind of the nice thing about canning and doing things is you can do things how you want to do them. So I'm just starting right now by dicing them, and I'm just putting them in this container here until I get them all done, and then I will pull the jars out of the dishwasher. So they're still kind of in there, staying nice and hot. Our dishwasher stays hot for quite a while. So the water is already to a nice hot, almost boiling temperature in the canner. I actually had to turn it down a little bit because it was starting to boil. Which you can have it boiling, but sometimes the shock of the boiling water with your jars can be too much, so just be aware of that. I've had a couple break because of that. This is a nice Amish paste tomato. All right, so if you have never had an Amish paste tomato, they are so meaty inside. I mean, look at how very little seeds they are. A lot of your paste tomatoes are gonna have more of the meatier part in the center too. Just awesome, just such a great tomato. Okay, so I'm going to finish chopping these up and then we will get to canning them in just a second. Okay, so I don't typically measure how many pounds of tomatoes I have. I don't have a scale to do that, so I just kind of do it whenever I'm ready, right? And quite honestly, I guess I didn't really think I had this many tomatoes. I mean, I should have known because they are pretty big. I was hoping just with the one canner, which holds about 7 quarts, that I would have plenty of room. And I don't think I'm going to, because this is 8 cups here, which is 4 quarts. This is 3 quarts. So I'm already at 7 quarts and they are like heaping over. So even if like pushing them down, I only get 7 quarts, I'm still getting 7 quarts plus my San Marzano. So I stopped for a second and I went and added another water bath canner to the stove. So I have that water boiling or start getting ready, getting warmed up as I'm finishing the rest of these tomatoes because, well, I have a good amount. Now, when we make our tomatoes or our spaghetti sauce, which is what we usually use a lot of the diced tomatoes for, we use a whole quart at a time. So I'm excited that I'm getting a decent amount because then I have a lot of extra and then also the diced tomatoes for other things that you just use in recipes throughout the year. So I'm actually quite excited about how big of a yield I got because I really didn't expect that much. So this is a good day here. Especially with our garden this year, my tomatoes, you know, it's August. It's almost the end of August here in Michigan, and I have 1 row out of 4 tomatoes, or 4 rows of tomatoes, and there's 10 plants in each row. And really the 1 row is the only one that's producing or starting to turn red. Besides my cherry tomatoes. The cherry tomatoes in the 1 row are fine. But anyways, all the other ones, I still have a lot of small tomatoes. I still have flowers on them. A lot of green tomatoes that haven't started turning yet. And quite honestly, who knows what the weather in Michigan's going to be like. It usually cools down pretty quickly sometimes. So I hope that I'll be able to get a good yield to make the ketchup and sauce that I want to this year, because we go through that so quickly every year. And I thought doing 40 plants this year would be better, because last year I only did like 27. And with our hailstorm, we lost a lot, and everything's just been really slow. So at least today I'm getting a decent amount of diced tomatoes. So that's that. At least we're starting that on a good start today. So all right, so we're just about done. I have one more, and then I'm going to kind of shift my workstation over there so that I can put the hot jars on the towel, and we're gonna be right next to the stove, so I can fill them and then put them right into the water bath canner. All right, so let's get to canning. All right, so I have 10 of the jars here that are still pretty warm. So I'm gonna do the whole tomatoes first and just drop them in there. I'll squish them all in there pretty good. You wanna get them squished. I'm gonna get a spatula too to make sure that I press them down and get some of that juice in there. Okay. All right, so then the juice will kind of start coming out of them as we seal it. All right, don't forget to wipe off the jar, the rim. And then I'm going to go ahead and just drop it in the canner right away. All right, I'm not quite sure how I want to do this. I guess I'm just going to probably use my hands. It might be the easiest. So I'm just going to go through, and we are going to fill all of the jars and finish canning them. Okay, so after packing it all down, we actually have 6 quarts of the diced and then 1 of the whole tomatoes. So actually it's perfect. It all fits into the 1 canner. So there's that. So here they all are. You can see I have the whole tomatoes in the center so that I can keep track of where those are at and label those correctly. So you can see. Now we also want to make sure that there's at least 1 inch of water on top of them, and there is. That's perfect. So now we're just going to bring the whole pot up to a boil, and once it reaches that boiling point, we can cover it, and we're going to let it go for an hour and a half. So in the hour and a half, find something to do, and I'm gonna get more things done around here, clean up a little bit, and probably start canning something else. So stay tuned for whatever video that might be. But anyway, we'll head back here in about an hour and a half once this is all done, and we take it out and let it set to cool. All right, so we've got our 1 hour and 90 minutes. Take it out, set it over here on a towel. Ooh. This one in the middle, this is my whole tomato. Oh, look at how much they shrunk up. So we're just gonna let them cool like we normally do for canning for 12 hours. Overnight. Then label them and use them when they are ready. There you have it. There are our diced tomatoes and a jar of whole tomatoes. Check them out. 7 quarts in all. So super easy. The biggest time was allowing it to be in the water bath canner for an hour and a half. So other than that, we are all set. Stay tuned for other canning projects that we have going on because it is getting ready for fall and all of our stuff is coming in. So stay tuned, subscribe and like the page. That way you can get all the notifications of our new stuff. We'll see you next time.